Coming up in this video is a very cool way to make wing-like forms or fins. Now I call this a hack nique because I hack a command, then tweak it into my own technique, plus I like weird words. Anyways, here is the final wing or fin shape. The cool thing about this process we're about to do is I make this from only 2 curves. Let's go back down to the construction plane here where we can start making our own. Now I've got these red axes lines, which are really handy, but for this particular demo, it's mandatory. So if you don't have any axis lines here, just draw a straight line through the origin. The next step is we're going to create a ellipse form. It's here on the main menu. I'm going to select deformable and then diameter. Okay, I've got some points here. I'm just using those for snapping. You can just click anywhere you want. I want to make sure this fits into a future shape we're about to see later. Now I'm going to come over here and just make a not too fat. That wouldn't be a realistic wing, and not too skinny. That's a little extreme, so somewhere in between. Now the reason we picked deformable, I'll just briefly touch on that. If I turn on F10, the control points, you'll notice those aren't at the quadrants where they would have created pinch points. So if you're curious about higher degree or degree 3 curves and surfaces, that's exactly what I was doing here. I was avoiding the rebuild. Anyway, that's not critical to understand for this demo. Let's turn those off with F11. The next step is we're going to build an outline of the wing shape. So let's go to a control point curve. I do want to snap at the quadrant or the axis or the intersection of both. So make sure we hit that shape you've just created. So I'll snap there. Also, I like to come straight out, not at a weird angle like this or in, but hit Shift to keep that perpendicular from the axis coming out. And then you can vary or deviate as much as needed. Okay, we're not going to worry about this exact shape because we probably want to make a little bit of tweaking. However, as we get back to this final outside second edge, I'd like to hit it also perpendicular, but it's a little bit tricky. So this is a great use of Smart Track. So I've got 2 more points to click, but Smart Track lets me take a look at the end, and then when I come over, it keeps it in alignment. See that little blue dot? That means those 2 guys are perfectly aligned. So I don't have to come back and align those or do any other operations. So those, if I now click the line, hit F10, you can see those are perfectly in alignment, and it gives you an opportunity to make additional tweaks on this wing shape. Don't forget, you can grab a whole bunch of the control points and move them around, or just 1 or 2. You can even select one and then hit the delete button to modify that shape. One thing you want to look out for is having a logical terminus or outer tip of this. Reason why, I'm going to turn off the control points with F11, and we're going to split this from a single curve into 2 curves. So we're going to go over to the split command. Then instead of using it, we want to modify to point. So this is not very obvious, and I didn't know about this until recently. But it lets me split anywhere along a curve. I don't have to draw something intersecting it. And this is the point earlier. Try to get at the outermost tip. Well, that's not critical. It definitely will help. Now that that is done, you can notice in the command line, 1 curve split into 2 pieces, and you can just double check that by clicking on either side. Now, before we make this shape, we got to make one more refinement. This shape here is flat. So I talked about working on the construction plane, which was always efficient, but we do have to rotate that guy up in the vertical plane. So let's go into all 4 viewports by double-clicking. I'm going to zoom in here to the front view. Make sure you got that ellipse selected, and then we're going to use the Rhino rotate command. The center of rotation should be anywhere in the middle of that. Doesn't matter exactly where it snaps. And then instead of picking 2 angles, I can just type in 90. So by doing that, it goes up vertical. And it actually doesn't matter if it rotates to the right or left. It still ends up in the same position, being completely symmetrical. Let's go ahead and proceed with the final command here. Now that we've got this split, hopefully you can guess what's happening next. We're going to go to Surface, Sweep to Rails. We're going to pick up both of those side curves. Then the ellipse, right-click. It does ask you where the seam is. However, this actually doesn't make any difference at all. So you can just zoom right through there, right-click. We do have options. I'm going to accept all of the defaults. And there you go. 3 curves, actually started with 2, making a pretty amazing organic wing shape. Does look fairly complicated with all these tightly spaced iso curves. So if those are annoying you or getting in the way, you can just go down to turn them off. We're going to do one more thing, though. This is kind of fun. A lot of shapes are easy to make flat on the construction plane, but they need to deform up or down. So let's do that right now. I'm going to go to Transform. And in this area, there's a lot of very interesting commands. You might want to explore some of the other ones later. For now, we're just going to select a bend. It's asking us for which objects. That's the wing. Right-click to accept. Now, the spine can be anywhere along its length, including a partial length. So I'm going to just click here kind of in the middle and then go outside. Then I'm going to switch views to the front viewport. And you'll notice that my first point is where it starts to bend. The second point being outside will control the remainder of the wing. So you can just bend it to any angle you want. I'll just click there and leave it alone. So now we have a really elegant, beautiful wing shape, still with just a couple of steps to get here. Let's leverage our geometry and mirror this with a Transform Mirror command. I'm going to select some of these snapping points. We can also turn off Smart Track if that gets in the way. So I'm going to just go from the origin to an endpoint there. And finally, I do have some other geometry in the scene. I'm going to turn on the reference rocket layer. And you'll notice all these other shapes were made. These 3 fins were made the exact same way. And then the fuselage of the rocket was made with this one single curve and a revolve. So this wing hacknique, as I call it, using the sweep to rail, makes wings easy and fun. The trick is to draw one clean single curve outline and then split it into the 2 rails needed. It may be a little counterintuitive, but it works great after you get the hang of it.